Today's episode is brought to you by Forvis Mazars.
SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Even in the 21st century, too many small businesses are not yet embracing e-commerce opportunities. As CEO of Hatch Brands, Todd Foote is immersed in the e-commerce space and offers key insights for small to medium businesses on how to make the most of a digital footprint. So what is Hatch Brands? Todd explains to Jeff Waters.
At Hatch Brands, we're really here to help bring a shared management service approach to what were traditionally mum and pop owned businesses. So what we've found is that Australia's got a wonderful, diverse set of entrepreneurs, often mum and pops, that literally couples that have started businesses, have pivoted to go online. And so, we really saw an opportunity, having spent some time in some rather large multinational e-commerce retailers, I got an understanding, I guess, of how they approach e-commerce and what tricks and tools and resources they put behind their businesses to make them succeed. And I thought about the advantage that there really would be to apply that to these smaller businesses that are started by your mum and dads. And so we've set about putting this into place through Hatch Brands, where we actually invest into or acquire wholly businesses that, fit that bill. So we've started in the homeware space. Our first acquisition was a business called Designer Chandelier, which offers a huge assortment of statement lighting, particularly chandeliers and pendants, and also wall sconces. And it really fit that bill in terms of it had been started by a mum and dad, who weren't a mum and dad when they originally founded it, were at the time in which they sold the business to us. And it just had amazing opportunity to grow further. It's competing with the likes of Beacon Lighting, but really just niche focused, just the high-end pieces, and had that opportunity to expand it across the country and, pull levers like use social media marketing, which the business hadn't done previously. And so that's kind of the strategy, is that we've got a playbook about how we grow these businesses, and we're really trying to add that sophistication into these smaller businesses that we invest into or acquire, and help them to be the best that they can be using that playbook and using our management team that we have at Hatch.
Everybody's definition can be different of this term. So before we go any further, could you please define for me what you mean by e-commerce?
Yeah, look, good question. I think you're absolutely spot on, Jeff. There are certainly different ways that you can view this. For us, it's a business where there is a substantial interaction with that business through digital channels, and revenue is produced through those digital channels. So particularly for us, we like to think of businesses that have roughly 50% of their revenue or more that's generated through online channels. So, think of your Shopify websites or a Facebook shop or something along those lines.
And of course, many mum and dad businesses would look at that realm with complete and abject horror and fear, not knowing how to deal with it. So you step in and help them out.
Yeah, that's right. It's, I don't think that they see it with fear. I think it's more that there is just a wide set of skills required to do e-commerce incredibly well when you're competing against the likes of an Amazon or a Temple & Webster and businesses like that have massive teams behind them. And so, I really think that the objective is to bring all those skills and resources, and it's almost impossible for one person to be able to do by themselves.
Now, what have you found? What have been the most common mistakes that people are making or pitfalls that they're falling into when you come in and start advising?
The most common things that we see are either missed opportunities with regards to digital marketing. And so I'll jump into that. The real opportunity here is that the consumer behavior shift that we're seeing right now, Jeff, where we kind of all grew up with the internet and Google was a dominant force in that. And so everyone's focused heavily, and I think everyone is pretty well versed now in trying to optimize their site for SEO, putting some paid Google ads behind businesses. And that's all commonplace now and just kind of your entry ticket. I think that the biggest missed opportunity that we're seeing is the investment into social media marketing, i.e. ads on Meta, on Instagram, on TikTok, and capturing the audience that way. And what we're finding is, particularly with the younger generations, Gen Z, I think I saw a recent report where about 40% of that generation now is actually using social media as their sole source of information. So they're searching on those platforms rather than Google to find what they're looking for. And that means if you're not present, if you're not active in those platforms, you're missing that market. And on top of that, it tends to be a very cost-effective market if it's done well. Google's a very established marketplace. It's got all the competition in there, so it's quite expensive to play. Whereas you can find mum and dads have more opportunity in getting cheaper acquisitions of customers through those social media channels.
So if I'm a small business listening to this, where do I start?
Yeah, look, good question. I think that the real thing that you've got to do is focus on building out content. There's a great Australian business called Quadlock that, I think have really, Quadlock and probably Audi are probably two big examples that I've seen do an amazing job of this. And it's not that you should seek to replicate them, but I think it would give you a sense of how to approach it, whereby they create just massive amounts of content and they're trialing lots of different things. And I think you've actually hit the nail on the head as well, Jeff, where we've got to get away from this mindset of not wanting to fail or having a fear of failure or, if I try something, it doesn't work. There's no harm in that today. It's not like you're creating content and having to put $500,000 behind TV ads to promote that. You now got the opportunity to create content for a couple $1,000s and put it up on these social media channels you could try it organically and see if it gets any reactions, or failing that, you could, put a few $100s behind it and get a sense of how well it's going to perform. And so what you find is that these real successful e-commerce businesses are producing a real volume of content and trying to see what will resonate best with their customers, and then doubling down on that style of content and producing more and getting, other influencers in and so on, and just building out a real content strategy behind that.
I suppose for the small businesses, and I'm talking about people with making profits of, say, $100,000 a year or something like that, they'd still listen to this and they'd say, well, a couple of $1,000s for video content is 2% of my annual income. Is that a good investment? Is there going to be a return on investment for that? It's, it doesn't seem like much, but it's still a big gamble, particularly at the moment, sometimes with the cost of running a business. What would you say to people like that? Is that a hurdle worth jumping? And do you see that hurdle becoming any less expensive in the future?
Yeah, look, I think it can be done cheaper. I think if you're willing to produce content yourself and really, step into it, maybe be the face within the content, then you certainly could do it a lot cheaper. We create content where we go and film in our clients' houses at Designer Chandelier, and we'll show what the finished rooms, the finished house looks like with all their statement lighting in place. And this is something where if I wanted to save money, I could personally go in and film that on my iPhone. And, obviously I'd probably want to spend a bit of time practicing doing that, but I could certainly do that and create some good, authentic content. I think the other thing to note is that you don't want to overspend on producing this content, because that actually doesn't resonate that well with consumers these days either, because they see it as not being a genuine statement from a brand or something that's trustworthy. And I think the other probably cheap solution to look at to create good content is actually just trying to source it from your customers directly. Perhaps you create a little competition where you're offering them, a couple $100 gift card and asking for them to submit content that then you could have the permissions to use on those digital platforms.
That's Todd Foote, CEO of Hatch Brands. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Forvis Mazars. To find out more, visit forvismazars.com/au. That's FORVISMAZARS.com/AU.